My plan to help seniors, people with disabilities, people who are living in SROs transition into better housing is that those agencies, TNDC, Caritas, anyone who has a contract with the City and County of San Francisco who builds new housing will move people from those SROs into these new units. We have that language in a contract that we see with Trinity Plaza and San Giacomo when he moved with Supervisor Chris Daly, who has endorsed James Keys, by the way. Right. Go ahead. Feel proud. Okay? Move these people from Trinity into their brand new apartment buildings at the same price. Chris Daly has also made sure that on Treasure Island, those people who are living on the island will get a brand new condo at the same price. We have the language. We are just going to turn that language into legislation. And that is my plan. When you put James Keys into office, you living in those SROs, you seniors, you people with disabilities will be moved. And that housing, when freed up, we will refurbish it, utilizing some of the great work done on the Planning Commission, and then move people from the streets into those SROs with wraparound services from the Mental Health Board, that we get money from Prop 63, and that is my plan. Thank you.
Well, I think first of all, like James Keith said, we need to make sure that we're funding services. It's not just about housing, right? So not only do we have to make sure that we're housing seniors and our families, but we're also providing services to those seniors and families once they are housed to transition them in. Once they are, we got to make sure that we're protecting tenant rights and strengthening a lot of tenant protections. We have to decrease tenancy, getting tenancy from 31 days, I think it is now, to what the state is, which is 28 days, to make sure that people are establishing tenancy earlier and not getting moved around like they were in the past, and making sure that the city attorney's office is enforcing when landlords are moving families and seniors around to make sure they don't establish tenancy. We need to pass another affordable housing bond in the city. The last one we passed was in 1996. We were able to build and rehabilitate close to 2,000 units for the formerly homeless, for seniors, for families, and that money has since run out. We need to make sure that we are actually paying in and investing in housing. And then third, what I have to say is that we want to make sure that our streets are cleaner and safer. That is a major issue in terms of quality of life for our seniors and families. One project that I worked with another candidate, Elaine Zamora, is developing safe passages for our kids. And we recruited our public high school students to volunteer and walk the kids from schools like Tenderloin and Bessie to their after-school programs and develop maps and routes. And ask the business owners and the after-school programs to watch out for the streets, for the kids on the streets, and work with SFPD to make sure that they're focusing foot patrol in those areas. So I think quality of life in our neighborhoods, cleaner, safer streets, making sure we pass another affordable housing bond, and committing services to families and seniors once they're in the housing are the key. Thank you.
Hi, Jim Miko again. You know, I moved here in 1977. My first apartment was a room here in the Tenderloin, Hyde Street between Turk and Eddy. I know what it's like to live in a single room with no kitchen, no bath. There's no dignity whatsoever. We need to move away from the SRO hotel model of housing into the small apartment model of housing. You know, South of Market did this in the aftermath of the '89 earthquake. They changed the planning code with regard to SOMA only, and they allowed developers to begin to build small apartments with cooking facilities and individual bathrooms in each unit in order to provide dignity. Okay. That's where I want to move the housing model when I'm elected. Thank you very much.
I actually agree with many things my fellow candidates said just now, but I think there's a couple of things they may have either de-emphasized or left out. One is District 6 right now seems to be the containment zone for all low-income people. We need to move low-income people to different neighborhoods around the city so they can actually experience the great depth and great wealth of the neighborhoods and the facilities and the stores around the city, not just in the Tenderloin. You should not be contained and only have the option of living in the Tenderloin. You should be able to live in the Richmond, you should be able to live in the Sunset, you should be able to live any place in the city. We need to take the affordable housing and particularly low-cost housing and take it other parts of the city, not just to Tenderloin. Secondly, we need to increase housing for seniors and for families. In the Tenderloin, there's a greater percent of immigrant families every single year. It's one of the few places in the city right now that's affordable for an immigrant family to live. We need to increase that, and we need to move these families out of one rooms into small apartments that are able to give a reasonable lifestyle to the children. And seniors, we need to not only have safe buildings and accessible buildings, but we also need to have accessible retail spaces that are affordable within the neighborhood, such as a major grocery store in the Tenderloin, so that these people can actually not spend all of their money on high-priced foods at some of these corner stores. Thank you.
Deborah Walker again. So I was talking with some folks that live in the Rose Hotel who told me the story that many probably experienced, that they've been in SROs for years on lists waiting to get into apartments. But in fact, folks from the mayor's Care Not Cash program get bumped ahead of them into actual apartments. We need to stop this. This isn't fair. We need to make sure that the services that we deliver are delivered and coordinated better than this. We have some really good organizations who have a history and a success at, like the Community Housing Partnership, of taking these models, these adaptive reuse potentials, and being able to do the tenant improvement to allow the change of use into group housing and family housing, and the next step in trying to, increase the habitability and the positive effect of where we live. I think that it's time to actually do an SRO task force that looks at how we're going to be doing these. There's a lot of projects coming forward that are applying for new SRO status. A concern I have is there's no limit on what anyone can charge for these rooms. There's no requirement of the services necessary, the wraparound services that we are finding so effective, at getting folks out of homelessness and into homes. We need to get the funding. And currently we have no housing bond money. We are failing at getting the federal government to prioritize this. And the talk about why we have so many homeless in the cities here, the HUD funding even for rural homeless programs is almost depleted. So in addition to the urban programs not being funded at the proper level, the rural programs are totally being cut, and people who used to live out in the smaller cities are now coming into the urban cities. So we have a lot of work to do at all levels.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Yay!
I agree with a lot of things that were said. Of course, the grocery store is a great idea, and one of the things that grocery store should be is a co-op, so that people are actually benefiting from working there, not just having a job. I remember someone said, oh, well, we need a Target because those are great jobs, but I've never heard anyone come home from Target and say, I feel very fulfilled by my job at Target today. So, and one of the things we have to do is extend rent control for the entire city. One of the things I learned is by 2030 we're going to lose another 25% of our 35 and under, and the reason that we have none of these people coming to the city anymore is because they can't afford to live here. You can't find an apartment to live here. And then we are also losing all of our nightlife and all of our green spaces to building these large buildings that are beyond market rate. So once we get the rent control, then we can go after the Art Academy University and get back those buildings that they took, the 47 rent control buildings and 11 SROs in the Tenderloin. And we can extend those to families and people who are in need. And those are some of the things that I think we should look at to find more of this affordable housing in our city. Yeah.